channel. Let me try to look at the camera. Manny Chang is producing as usual. He's not responsible for anything that happens on this particular show, however, unless I talk about the Eagles. Catch the show from yesterday. We had Gad on to talk a little bit about the Heat. Of course, the Heat play the Nets tonight up in Brooklyn. Still no Kyrie Irving. The Heat 2-1 on the season. Kind of entering a murderer's row stretch of the schedule here for the next, I don't know, it's almost about the next 3 or 4 weeks. Don't really get a break. So we'll see how the Heat come out of it. I think most people say right now they would be okay if they're slightly over 500, but we know during the process, it doesn't quite feel great if that is what happens. We'll see how the Heat perform. Of course, Kyle Lowry came back, and that made a big difference in the third game of the season. Today, we're going to talk Miami Dolphins, though. Let's not scare you all off. We are sponsored, as always, by our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. You can go to Underdog Fantasy and use the code 5RSN. That's code 5RSN. We were doing all those drafts before the season. Now we're doing them in season, okay? You can play just about anything on Underdog Fantasy. You could do like 3 players, 5 players, 7 players. You can play the head-to-head. You can do, again, the pick'ems. They've got some really cool features on there. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. Can use the code 5RSN, and you'll get $10 free. They just hand it to you. And a lot of the games on there are only $3 or $5, okay? So, that's pretty good. I mean, you get a couple of free games to play. The games are fun. They don't take very long. I can tell you, like, even the preseason drafts were like 40 minutes. They put the time clock on it. You don't have to worry about, getting players together. They'll do it for you. Everybody just signs up there on the app. So go to UnderdogFantasy.com. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the code 5RSN to get your bonus. All right. Yesterday, I decided to take a little bit of a break from the Heat. I was sitting at a Mexican restaurant on a Tuesday, Taco Tuesday. Got to go for the $3 tacos. And I was there and, just started sort of scrolling through Twitter on the latest on the Deshaun Watson, Miami Dolphins, Tua situation. And I just don't think that the Dolphins right now are good for anybody's kind of mental health. It just puts you in such a bad frame of mind because you can just see it's been like a slow motion train wreck the entire season. Like before the season, like this Watson stuff started to circulate about 2 weeks before the season that it got really hot. Okay. I mean, there was talk before, but like 2 weeks before the season. And if you remember, Tua had a great training camp, right? Played really well in the preseason. There was all of this optimism for this year. I mean, shoot, I made this terrible mistake and went to BetUS, which you can see up there in, I'm sorry, this corner. Use the code 5, and I went over 9.5 wins for the Dolphins. I've sort of broken it to myself that that's not going to happen. I mean, it looked good. Like it looked like the defense was coming back, mostly intact. Okay. And Xavier Howard's situation sort of resolved itself. Like, I mean, there were we were excited about the receivers, provided that any of them could stay upright. Everything looked pretty good. And then the Watson stuff broke like a week before the season. Like, and I tweeted at the time, like, this is the worst possible thing that can happen to this team. The worst possible thing that can happen to this team. And hold that one there, Manny. The worst possible thing that could happen to this team is Barry Jackson tweeting about you nonstop. Because we love Barry. But usually when Barry's tweeting about you nonstop, the news is not good. Right? Like, let Barry focus on the Marlins. Okay? It's a good question, Mike. Why would he want Miami? I think there are a few reasons. No state tax, which is similar to Texas. And that's the only reason I can think of, actually. Looking back at the last 20 years, that's the only reason I can think of. I don't know. Maybe he still sees something in the defense here that we haven't seen this season. Maybe he thinks he can coach up the offensive linemen. I'm not really entirely sure, but yeah, he's gotten his mindset on playing in this place. I don't really get it. But this is from John McClain, and then I'll get back to what I was saying here. I'm being bombarded with messages saying I've reported a Watson deal the Dolphins has been agreed on. I haven't reported that. Nothing's changed since last week. Dolphins and any other team Watson has approved want the legal issues resolved. That hasn't changed. Okay, here's the thing about reporting. I know John McClain. John McClain's been on some of our platforms. John was, I don't know what the exact term was. I think he's president of the Football Writers Association. Like John McClain is not some slouch. Okay, not that I necessarily hold the pecking order of reporters, but he's not someone to get played consistently. Okay, like And he's also not like one of those that just throws stuff out for clout. That's never really been his thing. Okay. So when John McClain starts reporting things, you start to take it more seriously. And the other Houston reporters are reporting it too. And so, yeah, the fact that they're all reporting it about the same time gave you the indication with all the Watson stuff the whole way around, not just yesterday, that maybe they're getting it from the same source. Like maybe it's from, it could be from the Texans, it could be from an agent, it could be who knows. Okay. But they were getting it from one, and that somebody has to have some motive for this to continue to get out there. Because I can tell you, for the Dolphins, none of this public relations stuff has been good. Like I don't see. I've racked my brain about this. I can't see any reason why the Dolphins would be leaking stuff related to their intentions with Watson. It serves them no purpose, and that gets back to my original point. They've handled this thing so poorly throughout that it's like they don't understand like how to deal with what comes from outside of their organization. And I know may sound to you like, well, they shouldn't have to deal with that, but most organizations do. I brought this up before the Dolphin season, okay, when they were taking forever to squash this thing, clearly because they didn't want to squash it, right? And I brought this up about what the Heat did right before last season when all the Harden stuff was out there, which was legitimate, okay? And they put it out there about a week before the season and said, we are not in on any negotiations for James Harden, which was there was twofold. That was for their fans, but it was also for the players in-house. It was for Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson, etc. I mean, at what point have the Dolphins given Tua any support? Anything? I mean, name something. With personnel, I mean, they gave him 4 young offensive linemen. No. Running back, I mean, they got a third down back as their starter. He's fine. Okay. How many backs in the top? And I'm not usually one to take a back in the first round, but the Dolphins had extra picks. Okay. Changes the equation for me a little bit. If you can get a playmaker, how many backs have the Dolphins passed on in the past 2 drafts that are excelling right now? Jonathan Taylor, Najee Harris. I mean, go on and on and on. They passed on. They did not give him the complementary running game that would help a young quarterback. And then the public relations stuff. Like, I mean, to let it linger, and then have one press conference where Flores says, I believe in Tua. I'm sorry. Like, people just don't buy it anymore. And it's not just because he doesn't say it often enough or with emphatically enough. It's the actions. I mean, the first year they kept yanking him for a 38-year-old. I mean, they didn't let him play through it. They did. I mean, and what was the purpose of last season, by the way, as we look back on it? I know they finished 10-6 and they were 1 game out of a playoff spot if they hadn't completely collapsed against Buffalo or whatever. Okay. And got doors blown off, which is probably what's going to happen this week. I get it. Okay. That they were closer than we expected them to be, but that's the whole point. Like, the point of last season was not for Ryan Fitzpatrick or anybody to navigate them to the playoffs. The point of last season was for Tua, coming off major hip surgery, the number 5 overall pick in the draft, to get all the reps he possibly could take so that physically, emotionally, mentally, intellectually, he could handle the position quicker at the NFL level, right? Wasn't that the purpose? And they kept yanking him. And they've really done nothing, like, from a PR standpoint, to support this kid at all. And I tweeted this out yesterday. Like, he's doing over the past couple of games. Okay. I know there were losses to Jacksonville and Atlanta. The Tua haters on Twitter, I just can't take it anymore. Like, I understand if you want to say that you don't necessarily think he's going to be a top 10 guy or that he may not be the one. Fine. That's a valid opinion. Okay. And I mean, I can't say for sure he's going to be a top 10 guy. I mean, right. But this thing about, like, with every time you point out the guy plays well or that the tape is telling you, and I haven't looked at the all 22, but I can tell you that the guys in my network who have, okay, Chris Kaufman, Craig Givens, etc., say Tua played a brilliant game on Sunday and made a couple of mistakes, one of which was likely the receiver's fault for the way he ran the route. And when you point this stuff out on Twitter to people, no, it was when we lost to Jacksonville and Atlanta. Okay, well, Herbert lost a ton of games last year too, where he put up numbers, and everybody celebrated the guy. So whether it's from a public relations standpoint, from the fans, from the media, But particularly what matters is from the team. This kid has got like no support. He played better over the past 2 games. I finally brought myself to watch it. I was like, I didn't want to watch it live on Sunday. He played better over the last 2 games than what? How many Dolphin quarterbacks have played for the last 20 years? I mean, what if you had 2 straight solid games from a Dolphins quarterback? Like, I mean, it's okay, Tannehill on occasion, particularly during the 16 season before he got hurt. Henny? Really? I, I don't remember a bunch of games you came out saying, well, the quarterback really, he was the reason they won, or he was the reason that they almost won. And the rest of them, I mean, do I need to go through the list? AJ Feely, Cleo Lemon, Joey Harrington, etc. And Manny points out Jay. Okay, I was a big Jay guy. Okay, I knew Jay very well. And and spent some time with Jay off the field, and I respect Jay. Okay, and the more importantly, the Dolphin players respected Jay. The Dolphin defensive players respected Jay. The guys you respected, Jason and Zach, they knew he was limited, but they respected him. They knew what he was going to bring. And the 2002 season, if you look back at it, Jay Fiedler was on an upward trajectory. He played really, really well in preseason, and they got off to a 5-1 start. And his efficiency was terrific for that time. The game has changed a little bit. He was doing what they needed him to do as a complementary quarterback to a Ricky Williams running game. Okay, and then he got hurt in Denver, and he missed 6 games. And Ray Lucas went 2-4. And when Jay came back, he couldn't rally them. Okay. But yeah, Gus Frerotte played a couple of decent games in a row in, what was it, 2005, I guess it was, before the Breeze Culpepper thing happened. But like, Dolphin fans like should be ecstatic about the way their young quarterback is playing, and frankly, so should the team. Well, it doesn't seem like it. It doesn't seem like it at all. And so these reports, yes, Ray Lucas, exactly, and Ray wouldn't have said bleeping, by the way. I like Ray, but he wouldn't have said bleeping. I mean, I just, it's just been handled so badly that when I tried to look at this before the show and I'm like, how do I even address this? The Dolphins have made so many missteps through this whole thing and the way they've handled this kid that, yes, I tweeted this yesterday. I would respect him demanding a trade, and I would root for the kid wherever he goes. Because this is a bleep show. Steve Ross saying, I don't want to deal with that. Oh, okay. Trade for that quarterback. Okay. And tell the local news reporters you don't want to deal with that. Because I'm telling you, it's not just going to be the sports reporters going to that press conference. Okay. It's not. I mean, they'll be there. But no, it's going to be the news side. And there's going to be protests. And again, this before we get to the moral and ethical issues here and everything else involved, okay? I'm just saying the reality of the PR hit that this team is going to take, okay? Beyond the fact that there is a large portion of the fan base that is looking at the way they're handling this young quarterback and saying, I can't root for this team anymore. You know how much of that I've gotten over the past, and not just on Twitter, but like in public. I run into people all the time. Dolphins, yeah, I'm not dealing with that anymore. That's where they're at. That's what 20 years of mediocrity, but then also incompetence lead you to. It's frankly sad because I remember the night that Tua was drafted. And I remember the excitement, people jumping out of their couches. And the reality is the kid really hasn't done anything to douse that. Has he been elite from the start? No. Okay. But he's been a lot better than what they've had. And the trajectory is up, and the Dolphins keep capping it. You know, we talk about with Bam Adebayo, no ceiling. The Dolphins are all ceiling. It's all ceiling. It's a glass ceiling. You can't get past it. All right, we're going to talk to our friend Kai here in a second. Before we do, want to tell you about another great sponsor, the 5 Reasons Sports Network, and of the show, and that's BetUS. That's where my Dolphins bet was dead on arrival. But thankfully, I made a bet on those guys to go over on points, and hell, they might do it halfway through the season. So that's the Panthers, by the way. That's the team, along with the Heat, we should be talking about, and we will as this goes forward. Go to BetUS, use that code 5. That's FIVE. Get your bonus that they do a great job there. 125% bonus. They don't have a ton of rollovers, so it's not like you're like have to bet constantly to get your money. You'll get your money, and it's a safe platform. It's a secure platform, and they've got everything. They've got the live betting. You can do the parlays. Obviously, the World Series, Braves and the Astros, you can bet that as well. But BetUS is where you want to go to make all of your bets. Again, use the code 5. I'm in this contest with Alex Dono here, and he's beating me in this. Okay, so I need some signups here against Alex. Okay, so use the code 5. My code is simpler. It just looks nicer on the page. Use that, and you will get your bonus 125% over at BetUS. All right, we're going to be joined now by Kai Chisholm. You can find him on the Extra Yard, which is also runs as our pregame show. It doubles as our pregame show, although not this particular week. You can find him there arguing with Juan and Michael and Royal, of course, because we all like to argue with Royal. But I feel like Royal's going to abandon his Dolphin fandom. It was very short-lived. It has not worked out very well for him. I think
not at all.
No, Packers is the way to go. I would say competence. Even if Aaron Rodgers is not there, I feel like they'll be in better standing. I've been focused a lot on sort of the way the Dolphins have handled the PR of this. But just beyond that, I mean, let's just do the football part first, okay? Without the Tua part or, the allegations part or the suspension, but just the football part here. What is it that would make anybody think that as good as Deshaun Watson is, and I don't think there's any question about that. I mean, I feel like we keep saying there's like 12 quarterbacks that are top 5 quarterbacks in the league now. Like, I feel like that list has expanded, but he's in that mix. Okay.
Right.
I don't think there's any question about the ability or anything like that, but we also know that he literally played on a team last year, that even with him putting up astronomical numbers, won 4 games. What makes anybody think that just his presence with the Dolphins, like joining this bleep show, like, I mean, it's lipstick on a pig. Like, I don't, why would he want it? And why exactly does it make, I just don't get it. It's like the one position that like looks like it has an uptrend, and it's the one position that they're trying to fix. I don't understand it.
I mean, I guess the only thing that really truthfully makes sense is the fact that, and I know that you mentioned we are consistently putting a bunch of quarterbacks in top 5 and all that other stuff, but I'm one that's been arguing since January. Just if we look at, and in January we didn't have the allegations that came out against him, but just strictly if we looked at the football point of view, I believe that Deshaun Watson's a top 3 quarterback in the NFL, and then you add in his age to the factor, and it just makes everything. I mean, he's a good quarterback. He's a great quarterback, but unfortunately, that's just not the only thing that we're looking at, and so it doesn't make it, anything better. But at the like you said, it's not the biggest issue. Like it's not the biggest issue. And I tweeted that out, and then after we only lost by 3 points. Everyone's like, oh well, how about now? It's 2 interceptions, could have had scoring opportunities, yada yada yada, and it's like, dude, Tua just had his first 4 touchdown game. He was the reason that they were in it. Yeah, he threw 2 picks. You want to go back and look at great quarterbacks who cost their teams games all the time, or the fact that even with all those mistakes, he answered on those drives and brought touchdowns back and put you in a position to win with about like 3 minutes and 20 left. Like, and the first play you give up on defense after that is, I believe, to Kyle Pitts, it's like 15 or 20 yards. Like, yes, the interceptions need to, like, the bad interceptions need to stop, but he's definitely not the issue. Like, it's ridiculous that we're like, oh, yeah, Watson. I will say, however, with the team last season that he was on, Deshaun had an outstanding year, by far the best year he's had in the NFL. The team did go 4-12, but they also had a coaching change. They also had a horrible defense. And part of that great season was Will Fuller before he got suspended, and he still continued that after Will Fuller got suspended. So it's not all Deshaun's fault.
No, I get it. And I don't think anybody, again, I think when we head to the football area here, there's not a lot to criticize about Deshaun Watson. So that's not, really the question here ultimately. I think that there's really, again, there's the question of, is this organization capable of doing anything without taking a shortcut? Okay. And that is one of my frustrations here is it's like, you had all of these assets, right? This war chest, right? Everybody described it as the war chest. Our guy Alfredo, right? Who's now down on the whole thing. But like at the time, it was, we've got the war chest, right? You have this picks, you have this money. You can basically address anything you want, okay? You can move up, you can move down. You can bring in veteran, which I know this has been Lewis's thing. You can bring in veterans to help the young players, okay? And all the rest of this. And you had all of this stuff so that you didn't have to shortcut the process. Like literally, you were going to have, a bounty of players to choose from with which to supplement your quarterback. And yet now they're at the point where really it seems like the only way that they can think of to get back into the mix is to shortcut the whole thing at a time when now their assets have begun to be depleted. Yes, they're still going to have money, but they've exchanged first-round picks. They've given up a first-round pick. They don't have the bounty of picks that they had before. It's just lazy to me. And I don't understand how the owner can look at this, okay? And again, we've heard it's more Flores than Greer that actually wants to do this, okay? But, like, I don't know how he can look at this and say, okay, this is good management. Like, squander all of your assets, and then when you found somebody who looks like he's okay, all right, maybe not elite yet, but okay, that's the position that we need to address because you got to have the quarterback. Like seriously. And the whole point the other day, and then I want you to address all this. I mean, the thing is, like, I'm watching John Morant play for the Memphis Grizzlies, right? And he has this incredible game against the Lakers, and he screws up in the end and he misses a free throw, right? Like, is everybody killing John Morant on Twitter for that? They're saying John Morant is the reason that the Grizzlies nearly beat the Lakers the other night. And I don't understand. Not that the Atlanta Falcons are the Lakers, but still. Anyway, address this. Like, isn't it lazy, guy? Why would you trust this GM to do anything again?
I mean, the first part being the trade with the 49ers and then the trade with the subsequent trade with the Eagles. I don't think that Chris Greer, Brian Flores, or anybody believe that the Dolphins would be 1-6 right now. Like, that trade, although people could say it was a little questionable, you thought to yourself, okay, you're keeping the Niners pick. They have no idea what they want to do at quarterback, so that could be high. You're supposed to be a good team this season, and then you get the Niners pick next season as well. It's like, okay, well, that's it. I still believe that trade was the right trade and a good trade. As much as I would have stayed at 3 and picked Kyle Pitts because Florida Gators, and we saw firsthand what Kyle Pitts is and will continue to strive to be. I still think that it was a good trade. I think that just because now we see in hindsight that we're 1-6, that we can't really judge it as being a bad trade. I still think that it was a good trade for the long haul. But like, I mean, I understand. Like, I don't think that we could continue to judge or keep Chris Greer and giving him all these chances to make assets when there are situations where he just continues to mess up. Like, you had a chance to address the offensive line, and instead you decided not to. You didn't want to do anything right with going after certain players, and you settled for Will Fuller, which still looked good at the time. But now we see that Will Fuller is injury prone, like we knew he was in the first place. I just think that, and if you could repeat like the last part of it as well, but like I think
the other thing is stupid. Yeah, the other thing is the Tua part, which is just this idea that it has to be complete and total perfection, or else the is not worthy. As if Brady's never thrown a pick, okay, or anybody's ever thrown
his last throw as a Patriot was a pick 6. His last regular season throw was
or that Mahomes, who's thrown 5 picks,
bad right now.
Right. I mean, it's just the standard here is so ridiculous. And again, fans are going to be fans, okay? I mean, people are going to take sides. On the Heat side, there are people for years who said that the problem with the Heat was Eric Spoelstra, not Hassan Whiteside. Okay, there are just that if they would just let Hassan play, he would be Shaq. Okay, like, I mean, fans are there's a certain segment of every fan base that is just not rational. They lock on to a certain person, and I used to get it during the Big 3 era with Chris Bosh. Okay, there were maybe 6 or 7 tweeters that after every shot that Bosh missed. See, he's not a max guy. He can't be part of the Big 3, okay? But they were real quiet when they won 2 championships. And he had a lot to do with both of them. The fans.
I think it's just
you can't control. The organization can dictate it somewhat, and they have dictated it to a place where now Tua can't catch a break from anybody. He has no support inside that organization that I can tell. Does he?
I don't think so. And like there's two things with Tua. The first that I think is kind of ironic in a way for anyone that's watched Toy Story, which I assume that pretty much everybody's watched Toy Story.
Right.
Like yesterday, him being Woody,
Yeah.
and there was a comment on the Extra Yard last night, and I saw something on Twitter as well where someone said that Tua's dressing up as Woody and Chris Greer is trying to go find Buzz.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it kind of felt like the perfect thing. And maybe Tua was making a statement because he knew something would go out there, and you could look at the analogies. But I think the other thing with Tua from a fan point of view is, and I was kind of tweeting back and forth with someone probably like a couple weeks ago, and the statement that I made and that I firmly believe is that he's reached beyond what Tim Tebow was in terms of the fandom. Because for Tim Tebow, it was, if you like Tebow, you wanted him to succeed no matter what. Guilty as charged here. Or you knew that he was a bad quarterback and you wanted him to fail at every step. Every time he spoke, every time he did anything, you just wanted him to fail no matter what it was. And I think it's reached that level where people have been misinterpreting the word stan, which I find hilarious because I think people don't really understand what the word stan actually means. But it's come to the point where if you like him, you think that he can do no wrong. And if you hate him, he just does wrong no matter what. So you're saying, it's come to the point where he does good. Everyone's like, oh, but he threw 4 touchdowns and not saying the picks. And then if you don't like the bad, it's like, yeah, but he threw 2 interceptions. Doesn't matter.
I think it's a little more tilted than that, though. I do feel like the Tua, quote unquote, as you use the word stands, or what, again, the misinterpreted word.
There are some that are like that level, though. Like there are some on Twitter that are a little creepy. Like,
well, there are, and they were doing this prior to him even being drafted. And I get years. There is a cult of that, and maybe we bought into it a little bit also. But I will say that most of the Dolphin fans on Twitter that I interact with who like Tua will say, okay, he's not there yet. He still has things to learn. He needs a cast around him at this stage. Like I do feel like there's some rationality. On the other side, there's, again, I don't want to get too political, but it does feel a little bit like the whole left-right debate. Like look, I'm left. Okay, people know that, but there are things about some on the left that I don't agree with. Okay, and I will say so. But honestly, those on the far right in this country, to me, are complete whack jobs at this stage. So it's like it's not. Two sides are not the same. I mean, the one side can be imperfect while the other side is irrational, right? Like I feel like the same thing has happened here. Like I think those that like Tua are mostly rational about it. Most of them. I understand there's a segment that's not. They're mostly rational about it. Okay. But I think those who don't like him are completely irrational at this stage in the way they present it. It's just like, again, you can be critical of him without basically saying, he sucks or he's this or he'll that. I don't think the evidence shows that. He's played reasonably well for a young quarterback who's got less than 16 starts in the NFL, who again was coming off an injury 2 years ago, or his first season, who doesn't seem to have a coach who believes in him, who can't get a consistent offensive coordinator. Okay, we don't even know who the guy is, okay, at this stage. Like, and has like, an offensive line that, while it's played better of late, they set him up for failure this year. Like, I don't get any of that. All right, I got one more thing to get to here with Kai before we do. Want to tell you about our great sponsor, U-Brake Wheel Fix. That's ubrakewheelfix.com, based right there in North Miami. This is where you get your wheels. You got them refinished, you got them repaired. Of course, the streets of South Florida, not the best place to be for cars, of course. Speaking of debates in Congress right now, infrastructure, ubrakewheelfix.com. That's ubrakewheelfix.com. They do the refinishing, they do the powder coating, they can do all kinds, 5,000 different custom colors. That's a lot. And you can go see them do their work down there. It's right in North Miami in the Miami Shores area. Say hello to Mark and everybody else. Mention 5 Reasons and you'll get 15% off. So this is where you go, and you can check out their Instagram page too. They got all the cool cars there. So go to ubrakewheelfix.com. That's ubrakewheelfix.com. Use, well, not the code, but the name, 5 Reasons, and you'll get 15% off. All right, let's finish this. How does this resolve in your view?
I mean, it's something that Juan Cardona mentioned yesterday, and I think that it does have some validity to it, that if you're going to trade for him, you have to do it before the deadline. Like, I think that you have to do it then. I don't think it makes sense. I think that more likely that a trade, if it were to happen, would happen at the end of the season. And at that point, I think if Tua goes out there and has a fantastic rest of the season, or if he even puts up marginally what he put up with the Jaguars, and like even just that game, like you don't have to throw for 4 touchdowns every game, but if he's like 250 plus and like 2 touchdowns and like a 1 pick or no pick or whatever, and he shows that like he's not the issue, going out there and then trading for Deshaun Watson would be one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. Like, if he shows you that he can continue to put up performances where he's not the problem, then you have to continue to keep Tua regardless of whatever the situation is happening. It just makes no sense to trade him. But I think that there also is the area where they'll see that he's doing great and they're like, ooh, well, let's stunt the growth of him even more. Let's trade him to a different team, even though he's younger. He's on a rookie deal. We don't have to pay him the money that we'd have to pay Deshaun. And, there's a chance that, by chance, again, allegedly, journalistic integrity, you have to say allegedly, and then legally and everything like that. Like, you're trading for an alleged sexual predator who has 22 cases against him. Like, that's just not great PR at all. And it's just not a great decision, in my personal opinion.
Well, I'm with you. But also the other part of this is that the dumbest fan take that I've heard out there about this is that Greer should trade the draft picks for Watson because he doesn't do anything with first round picks anyway, which, I mean, if that is where you're at, okay. And again, I know Waddle and obviously Phillips have a chance to be something, but we've seen what's happened with the other 2 picks in 2020, Jackson and Noah. The idea that someone is incompetent at something, so that let's strap him further, is one of the stupidest arguments I've heard. And yet it is an argument. It is an argument that's out there. And this has been a forgettable season in a lot of ways for the Dolphins. But the thing they're going to want to forget the most, I think, is the way they've handled their quarterback. To me, it's been, I don't know. It's total negligence. Not negligence is not the word. It's malpractice is what they've done here. You can follow him at Samurai Radio. Sky Chisholm. You can also catch him on the Extra Yard. We appreciate you joining us. We will do some Heat and probably some Panthers next week. I think I feel like this is a necessity. I know you're getting into this now, and they are. I know Kylie's got you into it a little bit, and they're fun, and they're not and they're not dysfunctional. They don't suck. That's a good thing. There's 2 teams in this town that don't suck. All right, you break, we'll fix. BetUS, use that code 5 FIVE. I got to beat Dono, and of course, Underdog Fantasy. Use the code 5RSN. Have a good day.